Hey everybody, welcome back to Highway Flyer. I want to talk a little bit today about time. It's 24 hours in a day, and today's the first day of the rest of your life, and all that bullshit. But time is one of those things that we always seem to bitch that we never have enough of. That's not the aspect of time I want to talk about. I want to talk about time zones. It's always amazed me that I can hop on my bike and go for a day's ride and be in a completely different time zone by the end of the day. Or in some cases, I've been 2 time zones over. And it's really kind of weird. Off and on, I kind of looked at time zones and how they're divided up, and I wondered who determined all this. Well, here's your history lesson for the day. So, time zones are based on the prime meridian, which runs through Greenwich, England. And when you hear about Greenwich Mean Time, that's what they're talking about. That is the baseline for all the time zones. And the way time zones came about was when railroads and steamships needed schedules, it prompted the standardization of time zones. And this was done at an international conference in 1884. Now, the world is divided into 24 time zones, representing 24 hours in a day. Each zone is set approximately 15 degrees of longitude apart. Okay, what's that mean? Well, 1 degree of longitude is about 55 miles. Now, there's some exceptions to this rule. India only has 1 time zone, despite being over 1,800 miles wide. There's a little island in the Baltic Sea called Market Island. It's only 8 acres in size, but it has 2 time zones because it straddles one of those meridians. Canada's Newfoundland, trust the Newfies, has its own time zone, which is 3.5 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time. So for the rest of Canada, when you talk about Newfoundland time, it's a half an hour difference, not an hour. Now in 1967, Coordinated Universal Time was established using atomic clocks and certain factors calculated in the Earth's rotation as a more accurate setting. In the US, federal law recognizes 9 official time zones, 6 covering the 50 states and the other 3 covering the territories. Time zone boundaries are regulated by the Department of Transportation. So the Eastern Time Zone covers 23 states plus the District of Columbia and encompasses the largest percentage of the US population. Central Time Zone touches 20 states but covers the most land area. And there's a number of states that straddle 2 different time zones. Hawaii and Alaska share the same time zone, the Hawaii Aleutian Time Zone. Now, Nevada is almost all in one time zone. It was designed to be, but there's a town on the eastern border of Nevada called West Wendover, and it butts right up against Utah. And because of its dependence on tourism money from Utah, because it's Nevada, there's casinos there, they opted to be in the Mountain Time Zone. I live in the Mountain Time Zone, which encompasses most of southern Idaho. But 128 miles as the crow flies to my north, Idaho is in Pacific Time. In fact, as you cross the river out just north of the town of Riggins, there is the Time Zone Bridge, which designates the boundary between Mountain and Pacific Time. Now, what got me thinking about this is that I travel back and forth from my home and I go to Oregon or I go up to Washington or wherever I go heading west of here. There's a little section of Oregon that's in the Mountain Time Zone. Most of Oregon is in Pacific Time, except for this small patch of land in Malheur County. And that is in Mountain Time. And even weirder, if you look just south of that, there's a section of Malheur County in the far southeast corner of Oregon that's back in the Pacific Time Zone again. Why? Who the hell knows? I have looked and I have researched and I've looked at all kinds of things. I have, of course, Google and Wikipedia for what that's worth. I've looked in old encyclopedias. I've looked at government websites. I cannot find anything that tells me who determines those time zones other than the degrees of longitude. But then you have these weird little anomalies like Oregon, where it suddenly kicks over. And why is southern Idaho in the mountain time and northern Idaho in Pacific time? Nobody knows. At least not that I can find out. Yeah, I know. My brain does weird things like this. But it's just kind of weird that you can travel to different time zones, and it kind of screws up your mind if you're traveling a lot. Now, I've done some cross-country trips. I've traveled into the Midwest quite a bit. Last year I was in Arkansas and Oklahoma and Missouri, and trying to keep track of what time zone you're in, because traveling the back roads like I do, you don't always know when you've crossed into another time zone. You're thinking it's 3 o'clock and you get into town and all of a sudden it's 4 o'clock. Or coming the other way, vice versa. So it kind of messes with your brain a little bit. Now, if anybody can tell me why these little anomalies of the little part of Oregon, or there's little parts of other states that kick into a different time zone, I'd love to know it. Anyway, that's my little lecture about time today. Just a reminder that my books, Life Behind Bars and The Long Road Home, are available on Amazon. Get your copies. I think they're great books, but hell, I'm biased. So I'll put links down below where you can get them. Pretty much anywhere books are sold, but the links will help too. And I've got some great trips planned this year. Got some adventures and some places to go where I haven't been before and places to go where I have. And I'm going to share a lot of them with you. So, as always, keep your knees in the breeze, and I'll see you on the road.